It was a crisp autumn afternoon when I first encountered Max. The golden leaves fell lazily from the trees, carpeting the suburban streets in shades of amber and orange. I had just left the local coffee shop, a steaming cup of latte in hand, when I heard the sound of a distressed bark. The noise wasn't just a simple call for attention. It carried a tone of desperation, of pain. I froze, listening for its source. Across the street, I saw him, a medium-sized golden retriever, his fur unkempt and matted, limping along the edge of the road. His movements were erratic, his head swiveling, as if searching for something or someone. I took a cautious step forward, concerned, yet unsure how to approach. That's when it happened. Without warning, Max stumbled and collapsed. In the middle of the street, a car honked, loudly, swerving just in time to avoid hitting him. My heart leapt into my throat. Without thinking, I dropped my coffee and ran towards him. The scene was chaotic. Cars screeched to a halt, drivers yelling in frustration. Some bystanders began gathering, but no one dared to approach. Kneeling beside Max, I noticed his shallow breathing and the way his chest heaved with effort. His eyes met mine briefly, filled with a mix of fear and trust. "It's okay, buddy, I've got you," I whispered, more to calm myself than him. Years ago, I had taken a basic first aid course that included CPR for dogs. I never thought I'd actually need to use it. I checked his airway, ensuring it was clear. His tongue was pale, a sign of oxygen deprivation. Placing my hands on his chest, I began compressions, counting, aloud to steady my trembling hands. 1, 2, 3. A woman handed me a bottle of water, which I used to moisten his lips and cool his fur. After what felt like an eternity, Max let out a faint whimper. Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. His condition was critical, and he needed professional help. "Someone call a vet," I shouted, my voice cracking. A man in the crowd nodded and began dialing. A good Samaritan offered to drive us to the nearest animal hospital. I carried Max into the back seat, cradling his limp body as the car sped through traffic. I kept talking to him, hoping my voice would keep him tethered to consciousness. "You're going to be okay, just hang in there." But deep down, I couldn't shake the growing dread. His fur was cold to the touch, and his breathing was labored. I felt helpless, and the fear of losing him, a dog I didn't even know, clawed at my chest. When we arrived at the animal hospital, the veterinary team sprang into action. They placed Max on a gurney and wheeled him into the emergency room. I was left in the waiting area, my hands stained with his fur and blood, my mind racing with questions. Who did Max belong to? How had he ended up in such a state? And most importantly, would he survive? The vet emerged hours later, her face a mix of exhaustion and determination. "He's stable for now, but his condition is precarious, severe dehydration, malnutrition, and signs of physical trauma." "Do you know his owner?" I shook my head. "No. I found him on the road." She nodded, handing me a small tag they had found on his collar. It was rusted and barely legible, but one word stood out: Max. Beneath it was a faded phone number. Using my phone, I dialed the number. It rang several times before a gruff voice answered. "Hello. Hi, I'm calling about a dog named Max. Is he yours?" There was a long pause. Then, the man on the other end whispered, "Max. He's been missing for weeks. Where is he?" The owner, Mr. Harris, arrived at the hospital an hour later. He was an older man with tired eyes and a weary demeanor. When he saw Max, tears welled up in his eyes. "I thought I'd lost you, boy." As we talked, a chilling story unfolded. Max had been stolen from Mr. Harris's backyard by a group involved in illegal dogfighting. I searched everywhere, but it was like he vanished into thin air, he said, his voice breaking. The scars on Max's body now made sense. He had escaped, but at what cost? Though Max was now safe, the ordeal wasn't over. That night, as I lay in bed, A sense of unease crept over me. Someone had gone to great lengths to exploit Max. What if they came looking for him? Over the next few days, I noticed strange occurrences. A black car idled near my house longer than seemed normal. My phone received anonymous calls that ended as soon as I answered. The tension was suffocating, and I began to fear not just for Max, but for myself as well. One evening, while visiting Max at Mr. Harris's home, we heard a commotion outside. Peering through the window, we saw two men lurking near the property. They carried an air of menace, their intentions clear. "Stay inside," I told Mr. Harris, grabbing a heavy flashlight as a makeshift weapon. Stepping onto the porch, I confronted the men. "What do you want?" They exchanged glances before one of them sneered, "We're here for the dog. Hand him over, and no one gets hurt." What followed was a harrowing series of events. The men tried to force their way inside, but Max, despite his injuries, leapt to our defense. His growls were fierce, his spirit unbroken. Together, we fought them off, the flashlight and Max's bravery proving enough to send them fleeing into the night. In the aftermath, the authorities were called, and an investigation led to the dismantling of the dogfighting ring. Max's story became a symbol of resilience and the power of compassion, though the scars of that night remained both physical and emotional. Max found a new lease on life. Mr. Harris and I grew close, united by our shared ordeal, and, as for Max, he became a reminder that even in the face of darkness, there is always hope.